Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode 5, and there was a lot going on this week in the world of sports. The NCAA's men's and women's track and field championships are going on this week in hot Austin, Texas. One of my friends was working the event, and they sent me a couple texts throughout the week letting me know exactly how hot it was. One day they said it was 90 degrees. Another day they said it was 96 degrees. And in all, even though it was hot, the action was even hotter on the track as the athletes did exactly what they showed up to do, and that is to show up and show out. Also, the Stanley Cup Finals are going on right now, and at the time of this recording, we are in the middle of Game 6. The St. Louis Blues are up 3-2 in the series, and they are my pick to win the series. That's not just because I was going to pick them no matter what to win the series, but also I don't root for teams from Boston. Growing up, let's say the past 19, 20 years or so, the New England Patriots have done what's needed to put a sour taste in my mouth in regards to sports teams from the city of Boston. They have single-handedly, they have over time and time again played the Colts, beat the Colts, played the Colts, and then beat the Colts. Played the Colts and beat the Colts. Seemed like every single year when we were in the same division, they would beat us in the regular season. Get in the playoffs, they would beat us again. When we leave the division, we're in separate divisions. They would play us in the regular season, then they would beat us in the playoffs. So like every year, the outcome was the same. We couldn't get past the Patriots. There was that one glorious year when we won the Super Bowl, where to get to the Super Bowl, we had to beat the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship, and best believe we did do that. Mr. Marlon Jackson from that team up north where he played his college ball, wasn't really his biggest fan in college, but when he made that catch, when he intercepted that ball against Tom Brady to seal the AFC Championship win, he was a player on my team, so I was a fan at that time. Went on to win the Super Bowl against the Bears that year. Devin Hester did what was needed to make a highlight in that game for the Bears, running the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. But honestly, that may have been the Bears' only highlight during that game. Then also the Women's World Cup started, and with the Women's World Cup, it brings not only a tournament that's every 4 years, but also brings our country, the United States of America, together to root for a team representing our country to bring home the hardware. And with the women being being the favorite team in this year's tournament, I believe that is exactly what they will do. Back in 2014, during the Men's World Cup, I remember exactly what the World Cup meant to sports fans, and also soccer fans as well, as the United States, not really known for their soccer, not really a power when it comes to being one of the top teams in the World Cup. The United States, kind of came together, honestly, it didn't matter where you go, it didn't matter where you went, you were going to watch soccer somewhere. Remember one day I was, in 2014, was lifting weights, I believe it was chest and tricep day, and I was in the middle of exercise 2 or 3, I forget exactly which one, but I go down for one set, come up, there's a goal scored. Okay, so let's talk about the game, what's going on, go back down for one set, come up, there's another score. Okay, this is different. I'm not a big soccer fan, I don't really watch soccer all the time, but I do know that in soccer, most of the time you don't score that quickly back to back. Well, okay, go back down for set 3, come back up. There was another goal scored. Now, that's really got people talking. In a span of 5 or 6 minutes, there were 3 goals scored. And that was kind of the hype, kind of get people in tune. You never know what's going to happen from game to game to game. That same year, I went to Florida, and it didn't matter where I went, no matter if it was the airport or if I was going out to get something to eat, the game was on. It did not matter where I went. People were watching soccer. I remember also, I believe it was that year, there was a watch party downtown Indianapolis, where people were literally standing outside, similar to what we see in Jurassic Park. Not that big as Toronto fans do go over the top to support their team. But also, there were watch parties, people having parties at their homes, at the apartments, things of that nature, to watch soccer. It was fun. It was an exciting time. And this year, with the women being who they are, I believe the United States will win and will bring on the hardware once again. I'm sure there may be someone in a different country, because as I know, there are people in Mexico and also in the United Kingdom that have listened to this podcast. And if they listen to this particular episode, I'm not trying to make you upset because I'm an American. I just believe that the Americans will win this tournament once again. That's enough of that. Let's go ahead and take another trip back to the land where they have coined this phrase, "We the North." Game 5 is Monday night, and the Raptors have one thing on their mind: let's close this thing out and win the ship. Game 5. A time that the Toronto Raptors can win their first championship in franchise history. Game 5. A time when the fans in Jurassic Park will celebrate like most NBA fans don't celebrate and go be out of their minds in jubilation and excitement that their team has finally won a ring. Game 5. Possibly the end of an era in Oracle Arena. One of the loudest arenas in the NBA. May see its last game as a loss. Game 5. The possibility of Kawhi Leonard winning his second Finals MVP and cementing his spot in more people's minds than that he's already cemented that he is one of the best players in the league. Game 5. Looking forward to it. But before we get to Game 5 and what may happen in Game 5, there was a Game 2, a Game 3, and even a Game 4. Game 2, we saw a couple injuries. We saw Warriors win, but we saw Klay go down with a hamstring injury. We saw Looney go down with a fractured collarbone. Now, if this was the regular season, you would expect Klay to miss about a week or so, couple weeks, for hamstrings are nothing to play with. Fractured collarbone with Looney, you would expect the same thing. Miss a few games. Not just one, but a few. Those aren't injuries that you come back from right away. But the Warriors had different plans. Game 2, the Warriors won, but they had a couple injuries. Game 3, Steph went off for 47 points. One of those once of a lifetime finals games. But that was it. Outside from Steph, they had really nobody else show up, and everybody on the Raptors did show up. Raptors won by double digits, and you start to see that not only do the Raptors have the firepower to win, not only are they physical enough to win, but they're unselfish enough to win. I mean, you think of guys like Pascal Siakam, Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, Kawhi Leonard, Kyle Lowry, Fred Van Vliet, I almost forgot his name, Norman Powell, I forgot his name, excuse me, being very unselfish, not afraid to rotate, not afraid to help on the help side, not afraid to switch when a switch is needed, not afraid to hedge a little bit harder than normal when a harder hedge is needed, not afraid to make that extra pick, make that extra pass, not looking to score for themselves, but looking to make the right play to win. That's exactly what's happening right now. We saw that in Game 3. Steph did his thing on his team. No one else really showed up. The Raptors really played out of their minds and get a double-digit win in Oracle. Game 4, you see Klay come back, have a nice game. I believe he finished that game with 25 points. Looney came back, got some nice production, but once again, the Raptors are too much. The Raptors are doing their thing. The Raptors are playing hard. Kawhi Leonard is not afraid of the moment. Pascal Siakam, the other players are getting used to the moment, getting used to the spotlight, and they're not shrinking when the lights are brightest. They're playing bigger, playing better when the lights are brightest. Up to this point, not really going to bore you with stats right now, but up until this point, the Raptors have won the breakdown of quarters one between the Raptors and Warriors. Raptors have won 13 quarters. Warriors have won 3. So if you're thinking, well, how crazy is this? Have the Raptors really been that dominant? The Warriors have struggled to do anything. You would think playing 4 games, the Warriors would win at least 1 quarter a game. No, they're not even averaging that. The Raptors' domination has really been huge, not just on the defensive side of the ball that I have harped on mostly, but also on the offensive side of the ball. It's amazing. It's amazing to see how this team, a team from a country that isn't known for basketball, a team from a place that hasn't won anything, a team from a place that couldn't get past LeBron James. Literally, as soon as LeBron James leaves the Eastern Conference, they trade their best player, get a better player, bring along with him a guy that's big on defense, a 3-and-D guy, and Danny Green. And then all of a sudden, they are doing exactly what they do. They're doing exactly what they do, and it was a nice sight to see. Speaking of Danny Green, before Game 3, LeVar Ball did another one of his things where he's going to be on TV, and LeVar made a comment about LeVar made a comment about Danny Green, saying, eventually the averages are going to catch up to him. He's going to break out of his slump and he's going to hit, and Danny Green did exactly that, hitting 6 of 10 3-pointers in Game 3. Then comes Game 5, the pivotal Game 5, where the Warriors look to stave off elimination. And, Steve Kerr thinks he has a trick up his bag. A guy that hasn't touched the court in over a month. A guy that last time we saw him, most of us are seeing, he's back in the tunnel wearing flip-flops. Mr. Kevin Durant, he starts to practice a little bit. Now, he's done practicing with his regular running mates. He's practicing against guys that won't get any playing time. Or if they do get playing time, it's very, very minimal. So extra practice for them is not a detriment to their body, where you want to rest the main guys, rest their legs and their bodies and things like that. Well, Kevin Durant starts to play, then practice, and then Steve Kerr says, he is questionable for Game 5. Now, in my mind, thinking, Game 5, I have to do something to change up the tide, change the narrative, change up what's been going on in this series. Like I said, the Warriors have only won 3 quarters out of a possible 16 so far. They've had nothing. Even in their good moments, even in their high moments. The Raptors have just been that good. They've been that unselfish. They haven't been looking to get self-signed, but they've been looking to just make the right play, make the right pass, roll at the right time, be there to get that charge at the right time. The Raptors have just been that team. I don't think this move for the Warriors will be what's needed. I still think before the series, I said the Warriors in 6. As it looks right now, based off of everything I see in front of me, I do see that it will be. I think it'll be Raptors finishing this thing up Monday evening in Game 5, back home in Scotiabank Arena, where those fans from Jurassic Park will celebrate like crazy. We saw a lot of those fans at the end of Game 4, right behind one of the bench areas, chanting, "Let's go Raptors! Let's go Raptors! Let's go Raptors!" There was probably, let's say about 2,000 fans that stayed over and started chanting after the game, letting their presence be known. Then also, I think before the "Let's go Raptors" chant, they were doing, let's say, singing the national anthem in Oracle. Sending Oracle out the way that they would like to see it go out. They don't want to go back to Oracle. They don't want to go back to Oakland for a Game 6 where the Warriors know all they need is just one game. All they literally need is just one game, one momentum, one win, another win, another win. A hard feat to happen, a feat that is very, very unlikely. LeBron did it a few years ago. I don't see this Warriors team pulling up the same thing that LeBron pulled off a few years ago there. But what I do know is, no matter what happens, I still think the Raptors are going to win, and I think honestly it's a little too late. The Warriors, barring injury, like I said, they were the better team, but the injuries got the best of them. But then also the Raptors showed up and showed that they belong on this big stage. Even though they've never been here before, they have a man in Kawhi Leonard that can lead them to the promised land. This man, Kawhi Leonard, I found this stat to be kind of alarming. He leads all players in the playoffs in minutes, in points, rebounds, steals, in field goals, and free throws. Crazy. The guy that had missed, I think, close to 22 games this year due to load management, and I'm not a big fan of the load management thing. I think if you're healthy, you should play. LeBron has helped Adam Silver stretch the season out longer, so there are less back-to-backs and there's more days for rest. You start the season in the middle of October instead of Halloween time. Then also the All-Star break is longer, so people could get an actual break. So now using the load management, Popovich utilizes it. Kawhi was able to utilize it this year. Steve Kerr rests his players. I'm not a big fan of resting players. I see why they do it. I do see the benefits of it. But I also believe that if you're healthy enough to play, you play. The older players played. There were numerous seasons back to back. Michael Jordan and other players that were at the top that were top athletes in the NBA played 82 games. It was not a question where you're going to play. It's you're going to do it. If you're healthy, you're going to do it. And I know a lot of people nowadays don't want to think about playing 82 games. Oh, it's a grueling season. Oh, it's rough. Well, how about you play the MLB schedule, where they're not just playing back-to-backs. They're playing every single day. A lot of times 7 games in a week. Sometimes they have double headers. How about you go from that, the NBA schedule, to doubling that, the amount of games that go into the MLB schedule? I think the thought process may change. But also, I do understand the thought process behind it. I'm just not a personal fan of it. But Mr. Kawhi Leonard, doing all that, where he's leading, really, he is just, you could say, the star of the playoffs. Being up in Toronto, a lot of people think, oh, they're Toronto. They're not in America. They're not all that. Excuse me. They have built up a team. Dwayne Casey has helped build up a team, build up a power. Then Nick Nurse has piggybacked off what Dwayne Casey, the coach of the year, ended up getting fired. At the time, I thought it was a crazy firing, but I see Masai Ujiri has done what was needed and knew exactly what he was doing when he fired Dwayne Casey and then hired Nick Nurse to be his next coach. He knew what he was getting when he got Kawhi Leonard and brought him to the team with Danny Green. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I think he had this thought in mind and saw this feat of winning that championship and bringing that to Toronto for the first time. I believe he saw that coming his way. Mr. Kawhi Leonard, The Athletic put out a piece on him recently, and it was talking about his time back at San Diego State, where he coined this phrase, "Boardman gets paid." There were times throughout his games at San Diego State where he would get a rebound or he would be on the court. He wouldn't really talk trash the way that I talk trash or you talk trash in whatever you're doing. When I play basketball, best believe it, I'm talking trash. I don't care who it is. I don't care if I know you or not. It's more fun when I know you because I can pick at certain different things. My friends know that I'm just doing it to have fun, not trying to be hurtful or things like that. So I will say certain things that I say it at a certain person on purpose. They laugh, things like that. One of my buddies actually at one point, he told his girlfriend, he's like, yeah, if you went off, if you went away for a little bit, and I had a sad look on my face, Jay would make fun of me. I'm not trying to be upset or mean or anything. I like to joke around, and it's just what I do. So I like to talk trash. Talking trash is something that I love to do. But Kawhi Leonard's version of talking trash wasn't really talking trash. You get a guy that scores 30 points against you, and every time he scores, he just says bucket, bucket, bucket. That's kind of annoying. I mean, I'm guarding you, bro. I'm guarding you. We'll go back and forth, and then you get me 4 times down the court. Bucket, 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 bucket. That's annoying, man. Or assist. I remember I did that one time. I did it one time. I was like, oh, that's not me. I don't really talk like that way on the court. So I stopped doing it. But assist. Kawhi Leonard version of talking. We saw him early in his career when he didn't really know how to talk to people or to talk to the media or didn't want to talk to the media. So he seemed a little awkward, uncomfortable when the microphone was in front of him. So that's him, but that's just how Kawhi was. So Kawhi coined this phrase, like I said, boardman. Boardman gets paid. Kawhi getting rebounds in college. Boardman gets paid. Kind of annoying, but I mean, that's really who he was. He's a man that speaks very, very little. He's all about basketball, and that's all his mindset is. He's all ball all the time, and you see that on the court. No matter what's happened through game 1, 2, 3, or 4, I believe that Kawhi Leonard will be ready for game 5. Kawhi Leonard will be getting his team ready for game 5, and I sure hope. I know that they won't. They probably will not do this, but I sure hope that during game 5 they put a mic on Kawhi Leonard, and we get glimpses of him saying, "Boardman gets paid. Boardman gets paid." As he said on the court in San Diego State, as his 2 years at San Diego State, he led the Mountain West in rebounds both years, freshman and sophomore year. Yeah, I would be annoyed if I was the guy on the court that heard Kawhi saw Kawhi get a rebound, and in my face he said, "Boardman gets paid." The next time down the court, "Boardman gets paid." That's annoying. That's very, very annoying. But that's Kawhi Leonard. He's all business all the time. He doesn't really let you know about it the way that the average guy does, or you or I may do it. If you talk trash like me, hey, if I do something, I told you the story the previous week when I cracked that guy in football, I laughed, I yelled. Actually, one of my buddies actually said, "Man, I can hear you from the sideline." Yeah, man, I'm here having fun. Kawhi Leonard doesn't operate the same way we operate, but Boardman gets paid. I believe Kawhi Leonard about to lead his team to victory in Game 5. My prediction of Warriors in 6 is going to go out the window. And I'm looking forward to Game 5, the excitement of it. And seeing Kawhi Leonard win a Finals MVP for the second time in his career. And let a lot of people to put some respect on that man's name, because he is that dude for the Toronto Raptors. In Game 3, in the fourth quarter of Game 3, Quinn Cook drove to the basket for a layup. In his attempt to score a quick 2 points, Serge Ibaka came from behind and swatted and blocked the shot. When he tipped the ball, he tipped it towards the sidelines. Kyle Lowry attempted to save the ball, but in his attempt, he was unsuccessful. When he dove to save the ball from going out of bounds, he crashed into a few fans on the sidelines. In the area, in the vicinity, and of the few seats that Kyle Lowry hit when he dove out of bounds was Mr. Mark Stevens. Mark Stevens is a minority owner of the Golden State Warriors. Someone high up, someone very, very, a very, very wealthy man, a man that is very happy to have the seats that he has, very lucky to have the seats that he has, very lucky to hold the spot in the organization that he does. And that may be why he reacted in the way that he did. Kyle Lowry dove to save the ball, crashed into the front row. There were a few fans there. There was a young lady that got up, and then that man, Mark Stevens. Mark Stevens reached across the young lady's seat, pushed Kyle Lowry a couple times, and then said repeatedly, at least a few times, "Go blank yourself." Kyle Lowry got up, disgusted, furious, frustrated with what had happened to him, with the fan putting his hands on him, not knowing who he is. He's just a regular, to Kyle Lowry, he's just a fan of the stands that pushed him and attacked him and lunged towards him. Went to the ref, said, he pushed me. The refs got the security guards. Security guards escorted the gentleman outside of the arena. And as many of you know, he has been fined $500,000 and has been banned from the NBA for 1 year. And it got me thinking. I was on social media just scrolling at some points. People were talking about what they thought his punishment should be or shouldn't be. He should get fined X amount of dollars. He should be kicked out of the league. He never be able to be associated with the team again. Rightfully being removed from removing his ownership as part of the Warriors. Thinking back to Adam Silver when he first became commissioner of the league, and that when Mr. Donald Sterling had those recordings come out and those racial remarks that he made it very slave owner-esque, his role with the Clippers. They thought, Adam Silver should be acting the same way. Ban him for life, this and that. Trying to come down very, very hard with the punishment for not just a fan, a minority owner putting his hand on a player. And there's no place for that in our game. And I 100% agree with that statement. There's no place for a fan, no matter if you're just a regular fan like myself, or if you're an ownership, if you're a part of an organization, no matter if it's the highest of positions or the lower positions. It doesn't matter. There's no place for fans. There's no place for people in organizations. There's no place for anyone to put their hands on an individual. And it got me thinking, why do fans react the way that they do? We are very passionate about our teams. No matter if it's a college football team, your college basketball team, your NBA team, no matter what team it is, you're very passionate about it. Many of you could think about stats. Many of you could think about at different games. Many of you can remember being somewhere when there was a high point with your team, there was a low point with your team. One thing about a low point with one of my teams, in regards of this fan negative reaction towards players, the Malice at the Palace. I remember exactly what was going on at that day. I believe it was 2004. It was beginning of the season. I think they were like 7 or 8 games in. This is when the season started around Halloween and progressed. So for me, it was a Friday night. I was watching, I believe it was high school football at that time. Warren Central was playing somebody in the tournament, as they always had deep runs into the tournament. They really ran the state that year, those at that time, in regards to high school football. And locally, they showed some of their games, and there was one of their game that night was on TV. It was a tournament game. And then for some reason, I slipped from that game, went back to ESPN to watch the end of the Pacers and Pistons game. Well, about a minute left in the game, 45 seconds or so left in the game. There was a hard foul. I believe Ron Artest fouled Ben Wallace. They got into it. They started tussling a little bit. And then they went from being at the low block on one end of the court to being at midcourt. Ron Artest got himself away from Ben Wallace, laid down on the scores table. And then a fan, this wasn't prompted by a player, a fan in the stands threw a cup of beer onto Ron Artest. And it wasn't like he was right out on the row right behind the scores table. No, he was probably 4, 5, 6, 7 rows up. Threw a cup of beer onto Ron Artest, and you all know what happens next. A brawl happens, a melee happens. Steven Jackson goes into the stands. Ron Artest goes into the stands. They both start beating up and attacking some of the Pistons fans. You could go on YouTube and watch the whole thing in length. It's really crazy to see that whole scene unfolded again. Then also, one of the parts that I got that I was like, okay, I see this. There was a fan that stepped up to Jermaine O'Neal. Now, if you know anything about Jermaine O'Neal, he is not a small individual. Every bit of 7 feet, every bit of, at that time, probably 250 pounds. And he's not small at all. If you get close to him as being a regular sized human being, you would back away if you're thinking about attacking him. Well, that's exactly what happened with this young man. He thought, oh, I'll attack him. They're in my city. They're attacking my players. I don't like y'all. It was a bitter rivalry at the time. Well, that fan stepped to Jermaine O'Neal. Next thing you know, Jermaine O'Neal, luckily for that fan's sake, slipped on some liquid on the court. Because as he swung, he slipped and hit the fan, but didn't hit him with the force that he would have. If he would have hit him with that force, that fan, best believe, would have gone to the hospital and had some issues with his face. But why? Why? Why do fans think it's okay to not only be vulgar and say crazy things to athletes, but also to put their hands on them? There's a crazy sense of entitlement that some fans feel when they go into these arenas, and they feel like they are part of the game as well. That no matter what happens, they can react in whatever way they want to. And it's crazy, but the older I get, the more I understand that I'm there for entertainment. I'm not there to be seen. I'm there to see what's happening on the court, on the field of play. I am not there to be seen. I am not there to be a part of the game or the match, whatever type of sporting event you're at. I'm not there to be seen. I'm literally just there to watch the game, have fun, and enjoy it. 2.5, 3 hours, for us, however long you're there. I'm just there to have fun. And that's kind of dialed down, kind of dialed back the negative remarks towards refs. I'm not one to curse at refs. I'm not one to yell out things like, oh, ref, you suck, or, oh, ref, you missed that call. Granted, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. I'm not one to yell at a ref that's blatantly making mistakes over and over and over again. I'm not that kind of guy. But one thing I have learned, and I think other fans need to learn, is that you're just go there to have fun. Go there to enjoy everything. I understand it's the NBA Finals that are going on, or at that time with the Pacers and Pistons early in the season, but that win could down the road could be home court advantage in the playoffs, or winning the division. So games do mean a lot versus certain teams, but there's no reason, honestly, no reason at all for people to say, "Oh, I'm at the game. I can do whatever I want to. I can push you. I can say whatever I want to." That fan in Utah that got banned for saying things to Russell Westbrook, there's no place for it. There's no place for it at all. Whatever happened to just going to a sporting event and having fun? I mean, that's what they're all about. They're here for our entertainment. We go to these games to be entertained. A lot of times we only go to games where we know what we're supporting the team that's playing, and that's perfectly fine. I get it. But there's no place for that. There's no place for it at all. I wish fans would understand, and I wish fans would think twice before putting their hands on a player or saying certain things or things of that nature. But that's not the world we live in. People will always do what they want to do. But it's crazy to think that fans, people think, oh, just because I'm there, I am going to say and do whatever I want. That shouldn't be the case. But let's put ourselves in the player's shoes or even the referee's shoes. Someone comes to our place of employment. Someone comes to watch us perform, and they're attacking me. It's not the fact that I'm just there. No, you're attacking me when I'm just doing what's needed for me to do my job. Let's think twice. Let's think twice before the next time you go to a game and you're yelling something and you're close enough to where that referee or that player can hear you, or you think, oh, I'm going to attack this person. This person did something to me. I'm going to push them. I'm going to push that person on the court. Let's think twice. I'll grant it. Most of the people listening to my voice do not have those thoughts. But we may know someone that may attack in a crazy, wild way. Let's think twice. Not maybe those physical attacks, but those verbal attacks. Let's think twice when we go to a game and we're saying crazy things. That person has a family. That person has places to be. They have responsibilities just like we do. We wouldn't like it if someone came to our place of employment and started attacking us and pushing us and bullying us and yelling crazy things at us. We wouldn't like that at all. But yet we still go to these events and do that to people. It seems like a weird standard, weird double standard. But that's just something that sports fans like. And honestly, it's just something I wish sports fans would change. I appreciate and I like what Adam Silver did with the punishment and doing what he saw fit to be the rightful punishment for Mr. Mark Stevens. And I hope that other fans take this into account and kind of dial back those negative attitudes, those negative tones that they have when talking to fans, talking to referees, and then talking to players as well. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to another episode of the Jay Stevens podcast. I want to thank everyone for praying and keep my mom in your thoughts during her surgery earlier this week. Her surgery was a success. I got to see her Wednesday and Thursday, and I got to see her take a few steps, walk a little bit. On Thursday, they had her walk up a few stairs and walk back down. You could see she was in pain, but you could also see that progress was being made. You can follow me on Twitter at Dr_J25. That is at Dr_JAY, the number 2 and the number 5. You can also send all emails to the show. You can email the show at jstevenspod@gmail.com. Once again, send emails to jstevenspod@gmail.com. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. If you like something, you let people know about it. And the best way to get the podcast out via the social aspect is to subscribe, rate, and review with that. Then also word of mouth. Word of mouth is the best way to get things out. You like something, you like your barber, you like the person that does your hair, your stylist, you like certain clothes, certain shoes. You tell people about it. And if you like the podcast, be sure to let people know about that as well. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Jay Stevens podcast. I'll see you next time.